perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Welcome again. I'm Harry Greenberger. I'm the host for this show and the president of the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association. And as you heard on our introduction, a part of our principles is that we feel that since we are not expecting an afterlife, and we consider the life we have here and now to be the one and only, we certainly support the concept of living life as fully as we can and enjoying whatever is available to us, so long as in doing that we do not prevent others from living their lives fully. Well, in that concept of living full lives and trying to improve the life of people, that involves not only how we react with our friends and neighbors and co-workers. It involves how we deal with larger institutions, including our government. And so today I have as my guest the director of the Louisiana Center for Women and Government, Laura Badeaux. And Laura, I want to welcome you to our show. Let me just give a little introduction as to your organization, which I get from your material, and then I'm turning it all over to you. Your website says the Louisiana Center for Women in Government at Nicholls State University encourages and promotes the leadership of women by providing resource and nonpartisan support through educational workshops, training seminars, and outreach programs. The center is committed to promoting women in government and public service, to acknowledging achievements of women, and to teaching all citizens about the importance of public service and responsible citizenship. You have undertaken a very large project. Now, tell us how you got into it, where you stand, and everything that you would like us to hear.
Oh, well, you said it. You said all of that, and you can do it in 3 words, too. Leadership development, responsible citizenship, public service. And it is our goal to help people become responsible citizens, and it all started around 1990. However, the center did 2 of those things. It sponsored internships in Baton Rouge for students to learn about government from any college in Louisiana. One could apply for an internship, and we still do that. We put you in an office in Baton Rouge, a legislative administrative office, or a legislative office the caucuses.
Let me understand that. This is a college student, someone who's already enrolled in college.
Right, but any college in Louisiana. One does not have
no matter what their major might be.
Right. We're housed at Nicholls State University, but those interns may come from any college in Louisiana.
And they get college credit for that.
They get college credit. It used to be 15 hours. It's now 9 hours. And the reason it's 9 hours is because the expense of going to college keeps going up and up and up.
Yes,
we pay your tuition, and we give you a stipend, and we put you up in Baton Rouge while you work for 4 days at one of the offices, an administrative office or a legislative office in Baton Rouge, and then you come to class either at Nicholls State or in Baton Rouge, depending upon the professor, on the Friday. So we still do that.
Okay.
And, all right, and then the other project that we had was the Hall of Fame,
All
at
right.
which we honor women who are out of public service now. You cannot be in public service when we honor you. That could result in a conflict of interest.
All right.
So therefore, once one is finished with public service, we honor women who have achieved while they were in public service. And that we still do also. But we have added, and I was a volunteer. I was a president of the board for the Louisiana Center for Women in Government, etc. And I was a professor at Nicholls State University. And you would not believe what I taught, Harry.
I'd like to know.
I taught petroleum economics. I taught intercultural communications for young men who wanted to become managers, and they were going to perhaps go overseas with an oil company. And I taught management, leadership, and power. I do believe that power is a necessity, and that people don't understand it.
And
So
you have utilized all these topics which you taught. You have utilized it yourself in this organization, I presume.
yes,
And
I
you
practice what I preach.
And you use the word power.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, when I am dependent upon you, you have power over me. So we need to understand that concept. And then what do I have to do if you have power over me? I either have to establish countervailing power, or I have to establish independence from you. So I think that understanding that concept, and understanding that power is a part of life, that everyone uses it, and you simply need to be good at political competence and the use of power. You cannot abuse it, but you have to understand how to use it, how to establish countervailing power, what gives you power, what gives someone else power, and what gives someone else power over you is your dependence on it, whether it's resources, or whether it's because you want to be a part of their social group, or whether it's because you identify with them, that whatever it is.
But if you want to empower individuals, how about the people who are naturally timid and introverted, and how do they react to the concept of power?
Well, I don't know how they individually react, but when you say empower you, I say that no one else can empower you. You need to seize the power. And so, and that is the concept by which I live and which I teach. And all of the programs that we've established since those first two programs in the last 4 years, I left as a professor. I still maintain that title, but I left as a professor, and I became the director of the Louisiana Center for Women in Government 4 years ago. Now, we teach even the concept of power in many of our seminars, in leadership development, pragmatic leadership, communication skills, building relationships. All of that has to do with establishing power. If you're going to establish countervailing power, are you going to become independent of someone? It's very hard to become independent of anyone.
I was going to ask you, there are two sides of this. You exercise power, but you also are under the influence of others with
of
power.
others' power, right?
And then the question is, how do you deal with that without either antagonizing the person who with the power, or maybe even being penalized by that person who has the
right?
How do you
rewards and punishments are sources of power. Rewards and punishments.
Right.
So you building relationships to me is a source of power that no one can take away from you. There's more than one source of power that no one can take away. Knowledge and competence and building relationships are sources of power that no one can take away from you, and that you don't need money to get, etc., and that fulfill what you just said.
All right, I want to continue with that, but I also want to ask, what is your connection and relationship with Nicholls State University? The
Louisiana Center for Women in Government is housed at Nicholls State University. But we are a statewide organization. We have 7 leadership councils. The New Orleans Leadership Council, which was under Kathleen Mix, and she just stepped down from her position and has taken honorary membership. Carol Short from UNO is now the chair chair of the New Orleans Leadership Council. Assistant Attorney General Kelly Phillips is the vice chair, and Renee Carrere is the recorder. All right, well, we have New Orleans, and they do so much. I'll come back to them in a minute. We have Baton Rouge, we have Lafayette, we have Lake Charles, we have Monroe, and we have Shreveport. These are all leadership councils that come together in a statewide organization, and we put on many programs. The New Orleans Leadership Council puts on a fundraiser. We have a date that we hope is going to stay October 29th, Dancing with the Stars with Mario Lopez. We're waiting for his confirmation, but it looks like we'll get him. Yeah. And Nell Nolan from the Times-Picayune won last year, and she will open the program Dancing this year. And that's our fundraiser to support our other programs. And New Orleans also does our Hall of Fame. Last year we had Phyllis George, first woman sportscaster, and Miss America, and Hoda Kotb, who is a great friend of the center, NBC's Hoda Kotb. And before that, we've had Barbara Bush, Jenna Bush. So we bring in people that people want to meet.
And these people whom you have just identified as being your Hall of Fame people, they actually come to an event.
Right.
And those are your fundraisers.
Well, the Hall of Fame is never a fundraiser.
Right.
We hope to break even. But it's the purpose of that is to honor women for their achievements. The fundraiser is in October.
Now, is that your sole source of funds, or do you get any kind of grants, or where does your money come from?
We are funded by the state, thanks to Senator Joe Chasson, who is term limited, but he's been such a friend of the center. We are funded by the state with a small amount. It's not a great deal of money. We raise the rest of the money. And when you talk about the programs, Harry, we started 3 years ago the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy. And we start with the things I've told you about. We start with their communication skills, with their building of relationships, with the understanding of peer pressure and power, with how to run for office. We give them a service project that is in line with our National Women's Leadership Summit. And then these girls are invited to the winning team is invited to the National Women's Leadership Summit and honored by our U.S. senators who sit on the Energy and Environment Committee, because our public service project, both for the National Women's Leadership Summit and the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy, is energy and the environment.
I gather that when you say girls, you're talking like teenagers?
The 9th and 10th grade, and the 8th and 9th grade, and the 10th and 11th grade. However, this year we're going to move away from the 8th grade. Over the last 3 years, we've determined that maybe they are a little young for some of the things we're teaching. Yeah. And in terms of understanding power, we don't want to confuse our youth. We want our youth to offer themselves in the future for public service.
And how do you go about recruiting these young girls?
We go through the superintendents, and the superintendents send out the information to the schools, and the counselors and the principals of the schools recommend these girls. And then we have a rating system. We have a criteria, and then we select approximately 80 girls.
Now, when you say superintendent, are you talking about just public schools? What about the parochial schools?
We don't have the resources to go to parochial schools, but our leadership council members may nominate girls. So in that way, we do get girls from the parochial schools, but it's through our leadership council members and not through superintendents.
And what do these girls do after they finish your seminar or whatever it is? Then what is expected of them?
Well, we hope that they have learned how to be better leaders in their own school and how to run for office, and that they understand the importance of building relationships, and they understand the importance of not being affected by peer pressure, and we also bring in the bullying and understanding that you need to be a role model. This is not, our program is for high potential leaders. We have already determined that you have a potential according to our criteria, as much as we can infer that. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to get you to the next level so that you still have time to offer yourself for service in your community or your school while you are in high school. And then that falls in line with our National Women's Leadership Summit, where we started off in New Orleans in 2009, and then we worked with all of the senators on the U.S. Energy Commission. And energy, right, because energy is so important to Louisiana.
Of course,
and we worked with Scott Angel in the Department of Natural Resources. He's been a big supporter of our National Women's Leadership Summit and our Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy. And so we started off in New Orleans, then we were invited to Alaska by Lisa Murkowski, then we were invited to Arkansas by Blanche Lincoln, all senators. I should say senators instead of just Blanche Lincoln. And then we were invited to Washington. So now we're going to stick in Washington. We've also been invited by Maria Cantwell to Washington State, and we've also been invited to Massachusetts. But I think that we're going to stay in Washington now. And then, but there are other things too, Harry. We partner with the Stennis Center for Public Service. I don't know if you're aware of them.
Tell
They're
me
in
about
Mississippi. The Stennis Center for Public Service provides the training for congressional staff in Washington. So we partner with them on things like Congress to Campus, where we bring in former congressmen or former senators to a college campus once again to promote an interest in public service. This year we will work with both McNeese University and we will work with the University of Louisiana at Monroe to bring in Congress to campus.
And so your objective is, as I understand what you're telling me, one is to develop these young people, giving them concepts and opportunities that they were unaware of, and also the expectation and hope that they will then, as they mature, improve government. Is that, am I getting this correctly?
Right, and then in line with your with one of your principles, make the best out of this life for themselves and for others.
All right, well now on that topic about improving government, it is my opinion, and I'm not alone, that we presently, both on a state and a national basis, have a seriously flawed elected bodies. I'm assuming that you might want to agree with that. What can your group do about that?
What can our group do about the flawed?
I think,
Harry, if you don't have enough choices, but with people who are running for office, then you're stuck with what you've got to choose between. Sometimes it's you're choosing the least of all the bad. All right. So what we try to do is get more people to offer themselves for public service. And in doing that, you have more choices. And if someone you need to hold people accountable to. My husband is in public office. Okay. He's on the city council in Thibodeau. And in every election in which he's run, he says, hold me accountable to what I say I'm going to do for you. And take me out of office if I'm not doing that.
All right.
And so responsible citizenship involves holding people accountable for taking the best interests of the electorate. And if you don't, then don't vote for them next time.
Well, very often the attitude is don't re-elect anybody. And over the years, the replacements have been no different from the ones whom they replaced.
But Harry, it's what you're saying. That's what we're saying. We need to start with our youth, and we need to educate those youth so that they become responsible citizens and then offer themselves a public service. But our problem is that too many people offer themselves a public service just for the spotlight, and then they forget that they're representing people, and it is the will of the people that needs to be upheld.
Well, I would certainly hope so, because our country was founded upon the will of the people.
Right.
We don't have a king, and we don't have a high priest. Our government is of and by the people. But sometimes I get the feeling the people have let us down, and your objective is to awaken them to the possibility of a better society. Am I right?
Right, and we're also working with the Badeaux Institute in New York, and the Badeaux Institute does Fortune 500 training, and so they're coming in for us free of charge. We're just going to pay the expenses, and they're going to do a Fortune 500 training in New Orleans sometime in the fall.
A training
for instance, pragmatic leadership, pragmatic communications, political competence, giving people so many resources, and then they're in competition to get from point A to point B with those resources during the training. And so it's pragmatic training.
How does a person qualify to be in that session?
Well, this first session, the first Fortune 500 training that we're going to do, we're going to offer to those people, those companies who've been supporters of ours, and give back to them by offering this first Fortune 500 training. And then when Sam Bacharach from the Bacharach Institute comes back, then we'll open it up to the public, as we do with our campaign institutes and our leadership institutes. The National Women's Leadership Summit is focusing on one thing, Harry: energy and the environment. But we also have leadership institutes at which we focus on leadership development, pragmatic leadership, pragmatic communications, and political competence.
For women.
For women, but men are welcome. And men and women need to understand their different styles. Everyone's unique, Harry. There's no way that you're going to be able to say that everyone is similar in their leadership style. But we need to learn to understand that in general there are differences in the leadership styles of men and women. We are usually, but this is not a rule that cuts across everything, but we are usually more consensus builders. And I guess I'm with my hands.
We meaning women.
Women, right. And look at me with my hands. They asked me when I was getting my PhD, a professor looked at me and said, "Miss Badeaux, do you think that if we took your hands away, you could get a PhD?" And I said, "Well, no, sir, but I'm going to try right now," because no matter what he said, this is when I was learning power. Whatever he said, I did.
Yes, well, I also understand, since I have witnessed you at the monthly roundtable luncheons where you often get up to speak, you are quite animated.
Oh, that's just my personality. I watched too much of I Love Lucy, I think, as a child. So, but getting back to our Leadership Institute, we do, that is open to the public, and it's open to men and women, although the invitations do go out to women. We publicize, and we get men. We especially get men at our campaign institutes, because we present campaign institutes the year before a major election usually, and we are cheaper in price than either of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party.
All right.
And we've been very successful with that too.
Now, when you look at the Louisiana legislature, what percentage of that are women?
Oh, there were. We just lost two, I think, or we're going to lose. We'll lose. I mean, term limits are going. Nita Hutta is term limited from New Orleans. Is it Rosalind Jones? She's getting out of the legislature. A very small percentage of women. The Legislative Women's Caucus, I don't remember the number. I don't know if it's 12 to 14 or something like that, but it's not a large number.
But your organization, aren't you pretty much dedicated to trying to increase the numbers?
Increase the numbers, increase women who offer themselves to public service. But let's not make a mistake here, Harry. I would never say vote for someone just because that person is a woman.
Of course.
Vote for the best candidate. But if enough people offer themselves for public services, then there are more probability of best candidates out there, and then some of them are women.
But aren't there more women who are registered voters than there are men? Wouldn't that automatically make it easier for a woman to get elected?
Not necessarily. Louisiana is a very traditional state. It's a very reserved state. It's a very Republican state, and people often vote along party lines and sometimes along gender, and we are more prone to vote for a man than a woman. I think that's changing, but we're a patriarchal society, except in the minority communities, they're more matriarchal, and that's where usually women are more likely to get elected. But so women may need to try harder, but what's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with trying harder.
So the overall view of what what you're doing in your organization over all of these years is to encourage and assist women and girls to expand their perspective, to become involved, to make improvements on the society in which we live. Am I saying this correctly?
Very good, Harry. And and one thing that we do in our Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy, and we're launching a National Girls Leadership Academy this year with our whole congressional delegation, and we are marrying leadership development to an education in public policy. Our youth needs to get involved in learning about public policy now and being interested in it, so that will make them more responsible. It should make them more responsible as they mature, as you said.
From what I have been reading in the newspaper, from studies that have been made, our high school students today are woefully ignorant as to the country's history, about even how our government works. And I just recently read that a very small percentage of them could even name the first president of the United States.
Oh my goodness!
Under those circumstances, you're really working against some serious odds, aren't you?
Well, serious odds don't bother us. The point is, we've got to start. You have to start somewhere, and you need to be persevering, and you need to be enthusiastic about that, and hopefully, even if you influence one person, that's more than you had. That's more people than you had yesterday. One person more to promote themselves.
Yes,
I'm very idealistic.
I understand that.
I try to be pragmatic, but I'm idealistic in my philosophy.
Well, as they say, a long journey starts with one step.
Yes.
Now we've got like a couple of minutes left, so I want you to take this opportunity to say whatever you would like our audience to hear.
Well, I would like our audience to know that they are welcome to join our Leadership Council for the Louisiana Center for Women in Government. And you can go on our website at www.nicholls.edu/LCWG. I know that sounds like a mouthful.
But you can say it twice if you would like.
Okay. www.nichols.edu/LCWG. And our phone number is 985-448-4770. Join us with Mario Lopez. And this year for Hall of Fame in New Orleans, we hope to either have Bethany Frankel, Skinny Girl,
okay,
and that would be a diversion from what we usually have, or Gretchen Carlson with Fox News. So thank you, Harry.
Laura,
it was so nice meeting you too.
It was a pleasure having you here, and I'm sure we haven't heard the last from you and your organization.
I hope so. Thank you, Harry.
And I want to thank our audience for being with us, and hope you will join us again next week for another show.